Damascus in this case. Yes, the video is called Understanding Damascus. Yes, I know real Damascus comes from Damascus, made from the ore from a certain mine. Yes, I also know that the pattern isn't developed through the welding and it's through carbides and stuff through cooling. This is not about that. So before everybody fills all of this with moaning, I know. But people looking to understand how Damascus and stuff works, pattern welded steel, let's give it its rightful name. That's what it's about. That's what we're going to do today. So what we've got over here, see, here's a load of plasticine. We've got a rolling pin, it's a tube silicone. And we've got a mallet, just so that we can prove that you can do it and it moves the same as it does under a hammer. Let us begin. Right. I'm going to do two videos on this. Understanding the basics. I'm not going to go into specific temperatures and things like that because I assume if you're already at this stage in that you will know how to forge weld. What we are going to look at is how manipulating pieces of steel, and this will do basic manipulation, so twisting, bending, rolling, and obviously creating the layer counts in the first place and potential different methods. And then in the next video we will look at more complex patterns and how to create those, things like certain mosaics, stuff like how you tile it out or unfold it to get more of these extravagant patterns that you see these mastersmiths doing. So very first of all, we're going to create our flat pieces of steel, which as you can tell at the minute these aren't flat pieces of steel, these are big chunky blocks of steel. So we're going to cheese knife these up, make some layers, pretend to forge weld it together with the mallet, and pretend we've got a really nice big set of hydraulic rolls with our tube. We'll create a layer count and then we'll look at very basic pattern manipulation. The very first one of course is twisting, because it's the easiest thing to do. There are several ways of then developing that twist depending on how far you create and cut through the bar, and you'll then see that as we dissect it once we've twisted a piece up, so we can see how you get the different levels of what you get and what you can also do with a twist. I'm still classing that as basic forge welding, although it borderlines with some more complex techniques like multi-bar and things like that. Right. 8 pieces of steel, we'll call this 15N20, we'll call this 1095 or similar. High carbon with no nickel content. The bit that you see everybody doing, we'll weld it together. Tack welded. Smashy smashy. Tell that's almost a double on the side, look. That's how good I am with a big knife at cutting things straight. Like a pro. First weld. Not the straightest, as you can tell, with the ideal tools. But we're understanding the principle, aren't we? We're not making perfect Damascus. So, first method, angle grinder. Start to see what's going on in the end of there. And cut that piece off from the end of there as well. And that's basically what the end piece of it looks like anyway when you do it. Approximately the same lengths of steel. Second method, hot cut and fold. Right, a few interesting things you can learn from this is this is what happens to your steel when you don't keep it straight. When you're drawing it down, you end up rolling the corners over, and them corners become these lines on the top. And the finer the count, bearing in mind we put 4 pieces here together, so we've got 32 layers in this bar, which is a very, very low layer count bar really in the grand scheme of things. If I'm doing pattern development or surface manipulation, I like to head for about 70 or 100. Works out quite nice, and you end up with sort of layers of about 30 and layers of about 100. So that would be 32 layers. See that development now on the top, can't you?
1,240.
4 32s? 32? 124.
3, 6, 9, 12. 128.
128. Until it's late at night when we're both struggling to work out what 432s are. 128 is our final answer.
Wow.
Anyway, it's 120 summit. Sounds about right. So we'll forge roll this together and that'll be our surface manipulation bar. How well this is going to work out in plastacine, I'm not entirely sure. But most of you will then hopefully understand the principle in the way that we can show it. Right, there's our 132 layer bar, this is our final answer. Wasn't it? Sounds about right.
128.
Anyway.
128.
Oh yeah, 128, I can't even remember numbers right, me. I just had 132 in my head for some reason. It's because I've got this big sword look, it just makes my brain go wild. Right.
Compensated.
It's our 132 layer bar. Right, I'm just saying it to wind people up now. It's actually 128 layers, but anyway. Here's our bar. This is roughly what I'd like to end up with. Do some kind of surface manipulation. So surface manipulation is anything that involves, obviously, manipulating the surface. And you can either take the stuff away and forge it down, or you can forge the imprints into it and then grind it off. Now because this is plastacine, I can't actually fully show you all of them methods. I'm going to attempt to show you the easiest one and one of the most commonest ones, which is ladder Damascus, and that same principle then refers to any other pattern of this type. It is still just surface manipulation.
Dude, it's plasticine, you've got to make a model.
Right, let's see if I can cut some bits out of this. This is going to be interesting. This is going to represent our grinder. Oh yes, it's actually working. So what I'm aiming for here is about 1/3. The deeper you go, the more you risk various issues. But I've found 1/3 works quite nicely for me. And you'll see why that becomes important in a minute. And what you should have, obviously not perfect because it's plasticine and I'm just doing it for a video, but approximately the same thickness running all the way through. So 1/3 depth on this side and then opposing it 1/3 depth this side, and that means when we flatten all this out, these bits here in between of these edges are still 128 layers, and we'll be somewhere in the region of about 40 layers in between of these pinch points. And as you can already tell by looking at it, you can see where it's disrupted them layers. So we draw that out for splat. As you can see, it doesn't exactly transfer through perfect because it's plasticine and not actual Damascus, but you can see how the manipulating of them layers creates them differences in them specific spots. Pretty cool. So, let's bodge that up. And we'll do a twisted bar. Yeah, take the corners off. We'll give it some twisting. I don't know how much twisting this plasticine will let me do, so we'll see what we can do. A few little teary spots in there. And that's as good as we're going to get. One twisted bar of Damascus. And then get some flux in these welds, innit? Squish her in a little bit, tighten them all up. Trying to squish it in without manipulating the pattern. Right, typical twisted Damascus pattern. Ignore these D-lambs here, like, you know. Yeah, standard twist, as you would see on most flea bay Damascus and stuff like that. Very simple, not very much work involved. Give it a twist to get a few lines going down sideways. But, and this might not work very well in here, you'll see the magic gets worse or better. Which way you look at it. Distortion gets worse and the pattern gets better. There we go, that's more like it, isn't it? Depending on how you cut it. So if I take a slice, sprunk. That's what your bar of Damascus looks like by the time you've ground it flat. And all these little ripples here, but you can just see the main pattern. Still very twisted. Not a great deal of distortion, and again that's similar pattern to what you see in generally cheaper bars of Damascus. Not to say they're all, obviously, but it's the easiest one of these to do. And there's our outside, straight lines, no little stars turning, you can just sort of see the edges coming here. So hopefully when I do this next piece, and we'll take it right down the inside, and this is an easy way of doing it, saving your material, it's known as bookmarking. difference there. Same twisted piece, using the inside. You've now got these insides of these links opening up. It's an ideal time to put a sand mine in there. Stick it in the middle. Sand mine meaning 3 layers of steel, for those that haven't learned that part yet. And that way you get your really distorted piece of the twist on the outside of the bar. Draw that down by forging as close as you can to finish, and then very little will be lost by the time that you grind it up. But you can see there's a massive difference there between the inside and the outside. And now you can also make these by putting your pulls and your eyes together, which would be like that. You can see how you would then put that to a multi-layer and create some quite extravagant patterns. So if we were to attempt this, which is probably not going to end well, but you don't know unless you try, do you? Maybe you can, but what if we could, you know? Let's have a look. This also represents just how difficult it is to do a multi-bar weld. And much like plastacine Damascus, this is where you'll see these D-lams, if you didn't get them out in the first place, will start to come back to bite you. Pretty cool to say that's just some twists put together, but if you've drawn it down relatively equally, you should now get this the right way around. Which way around am I? Not that way, is it? That way. Isn't that way? I've lost myself now, don't know where I am. Another same problem that you have with real Damascus, strangely enough. No, I'm going with that way. Never mind, that looks close enough. Do a double twist. Or you would have split this first piece, drawn this out, and then stacked 4 of them together. But just for representative purposes. Ta-da! Just using twists. I say just. Could be classed as more complex patterns rather than just one go forge it out. Obviously you lose a bit more each time you cut it up and every time you grind it. And depending on how you orientate these, will depend on what you get. You know, you can oppose them and put chevrons in it. If you do it with these bits on the outside, you know. But I'd say that's a fairly good understanding of the more basic levels of manipulation and how it can be sort of utilised, shall we say, because at the end of the day everyone looks at a piece of steel differently, and that might just fire off something in someone's brain that thinks, you know, that's how that's done, or that's what I could do if I put them bits together. And many people that start with Damascus do start with doing twists and ladder, raindrop and such forth and such forth. Less losses, less opportunity for chucking things in the never-ending scrap pile in the sky. But it just shows, if you start to understand how these layers are manipulated and what they're doing inside, it's not just what you see on the outside, you can create some pretty good looking stuff. I think that's all we need for the first part of this video, and we'll come back in a later date and show you some of the other things that you can do. I suppose there's only really one that I'm missing, and that's jelly roll. We'll do that at the beginning of the next one, and we'll use that to make something like a fossil Damascus or something like that. So thank you very much everyone for watching. I hope it helped someone out. looking forward to part 2 and what we can just do with a bit of plastacine. And we'll see you next time.